Hi everyone, I'm starting a new psychology series. This is the first video of the series, Introduction to Psychology. So today we're going to discuss the definition of psychology, history of psychology, so looking at early philosophers and those early disciplines. Then talking about sub-disciplines of psychology today, talking about the great debate with psychology, and ending with a quiz. Definition of psychology. Psychology is the study of the mind and behavior. So researchers and psychologists that study this area conduct experiments and investigate the mind and behavior. There's two types of research, quantitative and qualitative research. Quantitative is collecting and analyzing data, and they usually create graphs that have causation relationships, whereas qualitative is interviewing people and gathering information about their experiences and their life. So starting with history and early philosophers. Wundt was known for the father of psychology. He was studying consciousness. Tishner, Wundt's student, continued Wundt's research and developed structuralism, which was the contents of the mind. And he believed that participants' experiences are based on responses to stimuli. Then James developed functionalism. The mind has a function or role, and participants adapt to their environment. The research from these philosophers contribute towards psychology later on, and in particular, behaviorism and cognitivism. So next one we're going to talk about is psychodynamics with Freud. So Freud conducted clinical data and therapy. Freud was interested in the unconscious mind and developed some concepts. So one of the concepts was the id, ego, and superego. So the id was seeking pleasure. The superego was a person's morals and ideals, and the ego was the balance between the id and the superego. And these were aspects of the unconscious mind. So these were things that were below the surface. Freud was interested in analyzing clients' dreams and accessing that unconscious mind. Another thing that Freud developed was coping mechanisms such as denial, regression, and rationalization. Freud was interested in the psychosexual stages in children. So at certain stages, children were concerned with a particular concept or had issues with that concept. For example, in the anal stage, when the child is 2 to 3 years old, the child is concerned with orderliness and cleanliness and control. So if there was a conflict in this stage, this would affect the child later in their life. So they might be have issues with being very clean or not being clean. Behaviourism. So behaviourism is changes in behaviour based on an environmental stimuli. We'll start with Pavlov. Pavlov conducted experiments with dogs. He was teaching dogs conditioning. Conditioning is a learned response. Pavlov would present the dogs with food and they would naturally salivate. Pavlov would ring a bell, then present the food. After conditioning over a period of time, he would ring the bell and the dog's mouth would salivate. Another researcher, Skinner, worked on positive and negative reinforcement and punishment. Skinner worked with pigeons and rats as his subjects. Reinforcement is the consequence, and the aim was to produce the desired response. Positive reinforcement is receiving a reward after the desired behavior. Negative reinforcement is stopping an unpleasant stimulus from occurring to get that desired behavior. Punishment is receiving an undesired consequence, thus decreasing the behavior. Humanism. So humanism was quite a shift from behaviorism. It was more person-centered. So I'll talk a bit about that. So humanism focuses on the individual and human aspects to personality, motivation, and hierarchy of needs. So I'm going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. On the lower level in the red, this is basic needs. This is basic survival. Whereas if we head up to the top, to the blue, the level gets higher and more deeper. The blue self-actualization guides a person's behavior. We'll go back to yellow. So Maslow believed that people are motivated to closeness with other people, also known as belonging. So people wanted to belong. Going back to the blue with self-actualization, this is motivation to express and grow as a person. This means that the person wanted to expand their skills and abilities. So this is evident when a person wants to develop their skills in education or workplace. Cognitivism focuses on how people perceive and retrieve information. Research in this field started with Wundt and other early philosophers. Areas that research focused on was memory, learning, language, perception, sensation, decision, and problem solving, attention, and classifying objects. So there's quite a lot of work done in this area that contribute towards the study of psychology. I'm going to do some more videos tapping into each of these because they're very complex and there's lots of research that went on in these areas. So just going to discuss some of the sub-disciplines that are happening today. Biopsychology, developmental psychology, social psychology, clinical psychology, cognitive psychology, personality psychology, organizational psychology, educational psychology, health psychology, counseling psychology, sports psychology, and forensic psychology. The great debate, which is whether psychology is a real science. Across the years, it was debated whether psychology was a real science in comparison to natural sciences such as physics and biology, sciences of the natural world. It is a debate with many opinions. So you may not agree with what I'm saying today because there's different opinions and different sides. But my belief and many of other beliefs are psychology has strengths and limitations along with many other sciences. Some of the strengths of psychology is understanding the mind, personality, investigating people and society issues, learning and memory. Psychology has worked on efficient strategies for learning and memory. Some of the limitations, and this is the other side, where the researchers have said that psychology is lacking in these areas. So psychology's reliability and validity and methodology. So researchers over the years said that psychology's methods are not reliable or valid, that because it's dealing with the mind, it's subjective. They don't agree with the way that psychology was measuring and getting the data. And another limitation was participants' rights. So years ago, when the experiments first started, sorry about that, when the experiments first started, they would experiment with people and they didn't take into account participants' rights and ethics. But these days, they have an ethics committee and they take into account these sort of experiments and how they affect people's well-being. So I believe psychology has added value to our society and answered questions that natural sciences may have not answered. I have a bit of a quiz from my video. What is psychology? So what have you learnt that psychology is from this video? What concepts did Freud develop? What experiment did Pavlov do? What is Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Do you believe psychology is a worthy science? Why or why not? You're welcome to answer in the comments below. I would like if you like this video, like it or subscribe. You can also comment if there's a topic you want me to do. Comment below and I'll work on that one. And just to end with just my references that I used to create my research for this video. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.